It began like any ordinary workday. The office buzzed with the usual small talk, fingers tapping across keyboards and the soft rustle of papers being shuffled around. It was just another Tuesday, until it suddenly wasn't. My husband, Jake, had decided to drop by during my lunch break. He did that from time to time, whenever his construction schedule allowed. He always said seeing me in the middle of the day brightened his mood, and I loved that about him. It was one of those simple gestures that reminded me of the gentle, steady love between us. When Jake stepped into the office, every head practically swiveled in his direction. He was tall, strong, and carried an easy confidence that always drew attention. A few of my coworkers had met him during holiday events, but it was the first time he'd stopped by during work hours. I introduced him around, including to Tom, a coworker I tolerated more than I liked. Tom was one of those guys who constantly pushed the line with crude jokes and smug comments. Most days, I rolled my eyes and kept my distance. But that day, with Jake right beside me, Tom crossed a line I didn't think anyone would dare to cross. While Jake and I chatted, Tom chimed in loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Hey Jake, I've got to say, your wife in that dress is the only thing keeping this office awake. Honestly, I bet I could show her a better time in bed than you ever could." The words smacked the air like a slap. My stomach twisted, and for a split second, the whole room seemed suspended in silence. Screens stopped blinking, fingers stopped typing. Everyone waited. I wanted to disappear. Embarrassment, anger, shock, they all hit at once. Jake, however, didn't so much as twitch. He let out a laugh, not a nervous one, not a forced one, but a low, amused rumble that immediately made me uneasy. For a moment I wondered if he was going to ignore Tom entirely. He didn't. Jake stepped closer to him, still calm, still composed, but with a coldness that made the hair on my arms stand up. "That's a pretty gutsy thing to say," Jake said quietly, though his voice carried unmistakable weight. Tom, clearly misreading Jake's mood, chuckled along as if it were all a joke. "Hey, man, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Jake leaned forward just a fraction, his eyes locked on Tom's. "You're saying a whole lot for someone who hasn't figured out when to shut up." And then everything happened at once. Jake's fist snapped forward, slamming into Tom's jaw. The crack echoed across the cubicles. Gasps erupted. Tom stumbled back, crashing into a chair before he regained his footing and lunged at Jake. Suddenly, the office was a battlefield, desks rattling, papers scattering, people yanking each other out of the way. It was raw, ugly, and completely unreal. Security swarmed in within seconds, dragging the two apart. Jake's shirt was ripped, Tom's lip was split, and both of them looked ready to keep going if they were given even a sliver of a chance. "Don't ever disrespect my wife again," Jake growled, steady, unwavering. For once, Tom had nothing to say. The guards escorted them out while the office erupted into frantic whispers. I followed Jake outside, my heart thudding behind my ribs. I was furious at the chaos, the spectacle, yet another part of me felt a deep, undeniable surge of gratitude and pride. "You didn't have to do that," I told him as we stood beside his truck. Jake's expression softened. "No one talks about my wife like that. No one." The sincerity in his voice stung my eyes with tears. Later that afternoon, my boss called me into his office. I braced myself for consequences, maybe even termination. Instead, he surprised me. "What Tom said was completely out of line," he admitted. "He'll be written up and suspended. As for your husband, I don't approve of the fight, but I understand why it happened." The next day, the entire office was buzzing. Some praised Jake for defending me, others muttered about how violence shouldn't be tolerated. A week later, Tom returned, quiet, withdrawn, and very careful not to look in my direction. He never attempted a joke at my expense again. As for Jake and me, the incident eventually became one of those stories we shared at gatherings, half shocking, half funny, but always a reminder of how fiercely he loved and protected me. It wasn't a day I'd ever want to relive, but it was a day that showed me just how far he'd go to stand up for me.